I'm Donald MacKinnon. I'm 68 years of age and I live in Strathconnan with my wife Janice and our 2 dogs. As a younger man, I had an active lifestyle. I was in the army for 25 years before joining the police in 2001 at age 44. Probably about 3 years into my service in the police, I started to notice a bit of blood spotting when I went to the toilet. And not happy with this, I decided to go to the doctor. So I then asked, could I go for a colonoscopy just to get checked out and just to make sure things were okay. The colonoscopy identified straight away that I had a polyps that was turning cancerous, and the consultant said there wasn't really an option, I had to have surgery. So that was the start of my cancer journey. Probably 5 weeks later, I ended up in hospital. I had to have an anterior resection. They took about 7 inches out of my colon, and unfortunately I had to have a ileostomy, a stoma bag fitted for about 4 months. About 8 years after that, in 2013, I was on shifts with the police, shift work, and I was coming back from my shifts feeling quite tired, more tired than I had been previously. And at first I put this down to my age. I was a bit older then, 55, and just the type of work that I was doing. But I also noticed I had a lump in my groin, left side of my groin. So I went to Livingston Hospital probably about 2 weeks later, had an ultrasound, and the operator at the time said, not happy with this. Would you be okay getting a CT scan this afternoon? Alarm bells started ringing then. So, okay, had a CT scan, and they said, we're not happy with this. We think you might have lymphoma. But we can't be sure, we need to do a biopsy. And in the meantime, I'm doing lots of research to find out all about lymphoma, which I did. Had this biopsy and saw a consultant probably about 10 days later. And he informed me that I had lymphoma, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and it was mantle cell, which unfortunately is incurable. Not a good thing to hear. However, he said it is treatable, and we do this by a chemotherapy, very aggressive, and a stem cell transplant if you're capable of having that physically, which I of course agreed to. There's no choice really, so I agreed to this. So it was basically, and I had to just wait until January. This was maybe in November time. I had to wait until the January of the next year to start my chemotherapy. So I started that probably in the January, and it was 6 months of chemotherapy on 3-week cycles. So I had to have 2 weeks basically where after the chemotherapy, after the infusion, I was terrible with regard to energy levels, just feeling awful for 2 weeks. And then the last week I'd start to come round, start to recover, get my energies back, energy levels back a bit. And then back in again and get the infusions again, back to feeling terrible for 2 weeks. And this went on for just over 5 months. But after the 5 months, I then had my stem cells harvested, which was a very unusual experience. Thereafter, probably about 6 weeks later, my body gets to recover a little bit, back into hospital, and they then give me a massive dose of chemotherapy, which kills all the fast-growing cells in your body. A few days later, they give you their stem cells back again, and then you start to regrow the cells that you've lost. The transplant itself went without issue, and there was no problems at all. However, because of the previous infusion of very aggressive chemo, my body was still shedding cells and in a terrible state. I really was in a bad way. I didn't think I'd get through the day in one of the days. However, my body did recover, and relatively quickly. But 2 weeks later, I was discharged, and life basically had to start again with me getting my energy levels back and just trying to get my body back into a decent shape again after all the chemotherapy. And it took a long time. It took about 18 months to get my strength back. Thankfully, 11 years later, I'm still in remission, and which is really good. I think the average is 4.5 years for people to relapse. So I'm doing quite well at the moment. Things I've learned since getting cancer. Early diagnosis is key. Everyone says that, and it is worth repeating. Early diagnosis is key. So if you have issues, please make sure you go and speak to somebody about it. I'm taking part in Catwalk for a Cause because I think it's a great charity to raise funds for the hospice. To stand up here for men who quite often shy away talking about issues like this, and also to perhaps give some hope to someone who might have a similar diagnosis such as I. Incurable cancer isn't a death sentence. It just means you're going to have to get treatments, and hopefully, as with me, you'll still be here many years later and living a full life.